He's widely regarded one of the greatest cricketers in the history of the game, perhaps the finest spinner ever, an incredible presence in cricket. But Shane Warne has had a life of incredible highs, but also of lows. He's been a superb cricketer, but found himself in the company on one occasion of bookies. He's had to deal with a ban over the consumption of banned drugs. On the other hand, he's also been a loving and deeply caring father. But then again, he's had to deal with rocky relationships, rocky marriages, some of which have ended up being splashed across tabloid newspapers. Shane Warne has decided to write extensively about this in his book, No Spin, which you see over here. It's his autobiography, written with his good friend Mark Nicholas. Shane Warne joins us now from the UK. Thanks, Shane, very much for speaking to us. I've gone through the book. It's a wonderful read, but I must ask you, it is such an intensely personal account. In terms of your personal life, do you have regrets? Would you do something differently now?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate the time. Look, the book's been fantastically well received so far. It's the feedback I've had has been amazing, really. I've been blown away with how many people have loved reading the book. They've even said it's inspired them. So that makes me feel very, very happy, and that I've done a good job with the book. Look, I've been brutally honest in the book about personal life, my relationship with my children, cricket family. I go in depth into everything. So I hope that people enjoy it over there in India. I go, as I said, in depth in a lot of things, but especially about the IPL in 2008, about the things we did and how we went about winning the first ever IPL. And the characters involved, sure, and the tough decisions that were made. And so I hope the people out there will enjoy the read too.
Shane, you mentioned your children. You're obviously extremely close to them, and they've seen your life go through all sorts of turmoil in between periods of great happiness. Would you say perhaps the most difficult part of your personal life was when you had to tell your children that, look, you and Simone were going to break up once again, and that it was never going to be all of you living together again? Would you say that's been one of the toughest periods in your life?
Yeah, it's never easy when parents break up. It's never easy for the children. But they've been fantastic to both their mother and myself. We've got a fantastic relationship, and at the end of the day, the ups and downs that we live through our life, sometimes you make a few mistakes along the way, but it makes us who we are. And I'm very, very lucky to have a terrific relationship with my children. We get along great. And they're a lot older now. They're 21, 19 and 17. So, yeah, it is funny when you're traveling all over the world and you're speaking to them every day. But they don't want to spend all the time with Dad. They want to hang with Dad. They want to hang with their mum and hang with their friends. So I've got a really good balance with everything at the moment.
Yep. What about the relationship with Liz? It's something that the entire world followed. It was something where you had invested so much emotional energy, and yet things didn't go out. But you have written that this was very much the love of your life, the relationship of your life. Any major regrets over there? Was it your own insecurities, which you've written about, which perhaps came in the way of this relationship working?
No, well, I've only had 2 relationships in my life, proper relationships. I was married for 10 years to Simone, and then I was engaged with Elizabeth. We were together for 4 years, and I was, one of the happiest times of my life. We got along great, and unfortunately, the relationship just fizzled out in the end. We're still great friends now, and it was nothing that she did wrong or I did wrong. It was just one of those things, unfortunately, didn't quite work out. But we're still great friends now, and her son Damien and my children all get along, and they still keep in touch, which is really nice.
What about that one period, which you've written, one incident which you've written about, when you were in a hotel room or wherever it was with 2 friends of yours, one of whom decided to expose that particular scenario to the tabloid media? How difficult was it for you to deal with it? I can imagine it must have been a real challenge.
Yeah, well, I'm a very loyal person, so when someone betrays your trust in any shape, whether it be cricket, off-field, relationship, whatever, it's very hurtful. And so that was a very disappointing time. It's never easy to see that. splashed all over the newspapers. But, you know, as I said, they're part of the ups and downs and along the journey that, you know, they're the good and the bad. There are good in the sides. There's a lot. The good definitely outweighs the bad. And I've been very lucky to live an extraordinary life and play in a great era of Australian cricket. So I'm very, very happy with what I achieved.
Let's start at the very beginning. You've written a lot about your father. The fact that he was a hard-working man. He worked very hard to make things work for your family. Would you tell us a little bit about how he's been an inspiration for you, your father?
Yeah, both my parents have been outstanding. I couldn't have asked them to be any nicer, supportive, loving towards me, especially my father and my mother. They've been amazing, really, just nothing but support. You know, they're getting older now. And, you know, it's harder to spend more time with them, whether you're travelling around, working, and you're with your own children. But it's nice to know they're always there. And I speak to them every couple of days just to check in and say hello and see how they are.
Now, one of the recurring themes in the book is on smoking. You know, you start when you were young. You certainly did.
Yep.
I was 11 or 12. Jason and I were 11 or 12. Dad locked us in a closet. You guys want to smoke? Here's a pack each. You're not going to come out until you've smoked the lot. And then later on, there was Marsh, Bruce Reed, Greg Matthews, AB, and you, who used to smoke as well. You're a sports person, not a perfectly good example, are you, when it comes to smoking?
No, I'm not. I think I'm a very good example for people, and I hope I inspire lots of people. Unfortunately, I've got a bad habit of smoking. I don't recommend that to anyone, but I've been smoking a long time. I enjoy it. I know it's not good for me, and hopefully one day I'll be able to give up.
All right. Tell us a little bit about school itself. You wrote in your book that, you know, there was an occasion of corporal punishment as well, when I think it was your schoolmaster who said 6 of the best for you. What brought that on?
Well, you know, just being a naughty boy at school, unfortunately in the 80s when I was at school, the cane was still very solid, and the headmaster and other people used to practice their golf swing on me and give me 6 of the best.
You've written about your brother as well, and this one incredible occasion when there was a spear gun which was fired in your direction, and we wouldn't be having this interview today had that spear gun shot been a little bit more accurate.
No, exactly right. As I go into the book into detail about it, I've got a good relationship with my brother, and we get along great. But yeah, that day he sort of lost the plot, and if it had been a little bit closer, I definitely wouldn't have been here and wouldn't be doing this interview.
You've written about Sachin Tendulkar, first, of course, in the context, I think, of the first Test match. You mentioned he looked, what, 8 years old or so, or 12 years old. I forget the exact words that you've mentioned over there. What are your memories of that first Test match? How do you look back at that?
Yeah, I remember my first Test match and didn't know half the team, my own team. I had to introduce myself to Bruce Reed and Jeff Marsh and a few other players. So that was quite daunting as a 21-year-old kid. And then playing in that Test match, I remember Ravi Shastri playing beautifully. I dropped him, caught and bowled on 66, and he went on to make 206, I think. And Sachin, who looked about 12, I think he was 17, made 100 as well. So, you know, it was my first sort of introduction to India. We won the series comfortably, but it was great to start my friendship with Sachin and Ravi. And it was great to play against India at an early age.
We'll come back to India in a moment, but when one speaks about Shane Warne and Shane Warne's cricket, it's that magic ball, the dream ball, which everybody talks about. Cricket freaks like me often go back on YouTube and see it over and over again. Run us through that ball. Were you actually trying to do what actually turned up? I mean, was that your exact goal, to pitch it outside leg and to try and make it hit off? Or were you trying to do something else? Was it better than you expected?
Yeah, well, it's the first ball I was bowling in an Ashes series. So first ball of any spell, any Test series, you just want to try and land it as best you can. And I was just trying to, you know, always be aggressive when I bowl, always try and hit the stumps the majority of the time. So that time I was just trying to spin it as hard as I possibly could and hit the stumps. And, you know, it turned out as what's known as the ball of the century. So I'm very pleased with it and very, very happy that Gatting missed it. And that ball sort of changed my life.
Now, as you talk about your journey through cricket, you've also spoken about the importance of contracts, how initially there wasn't very good money in cricket, but then over a period of time, there were the big contracts that came in. How did that change your life over a period of time?
Yeah, well, when I first started, I was getting paid $3,000 for playing cricket for Australia. I was working part-time in a pizza shop at the same time. So, yeah, look, it did change. Probably changed when I just started finishing in 2007. It just started to change, and then the IPL came in 2008, and that's when it started to change. So I just missed the big contracts of playing cricket. But I was lucky enough that I have some amazing supportive sponsors that have looked after me all these years, and you know, I made more money in sponsorship than I made out of cricket.
Who you've spoken about was Lara v. Tendulkar. And you had some interesting points because you've thought about that again, and there are different scenarios in which you would prefer one or the other to bat for your life. So tell us a little bit about, you know, thinking back as you've gone through their careers, who would you rate and how would you assess them differently?
Yeah, going back through the book over, you know, I started in 1990, finished in 2013, so I played for 23 years. And going back through all the innings, Brian Lara and Sachin Tendulkar were quite easily the best two batsmen of our generation, or my time. Daylight second, and then the rest. It's very hard to split them. I think if you wanted to go and watch someone, you needed 400 to win on the last day of a test match or the last innings, I'd send Brian Lara out because he's more chance of making 200. If I wanted someone to bat for my life day in, day out, then I'd wheel out Sachin Tendulkar because he was such a class act. So very hard to split them, but they're both terrific players and the best players that I saw.
Two other players who you've spoken about, Viv Richards and Wasim Akram. Wasim, of course, you played with. I don't think you played with Viv Richards per se, but tell us about Wasim Akram first. Why did you assess him as being as good as he is, or as good as he was?
Wasim Akram was probably the most skillful bowler I ever saw. He was a wonderful bowler in any conditions and a real handful. And I've got to know him as a friend too, and he's a great guy. Viv Richards was my favourite cricketer. He's my favourite cricketer ever. I loved the way he played the game. I've been lucky enough to get to know him over the years and work with him at the Melbourne Stars in the Big Bash when I was captain. He's a really, really great mind on the game. And I think when we were all growing up, watching Viv Richards bat was a real highlight.
Tell us a little bit about VVS Lakshman as well. You talk about that Kolkata Test match. How was that among the best innings that you've seen any opposition batsman play?
Yeah, well, to bat for that long in those conditions, and I think, what did he make, 280 or something?
281, I think.
He was, yeah, it was a great innings. You know, he had a couple of good innings against Australia, but that one really stood out for me. It was a great innings.
Is it a regret of yours that despite being perhaps the greatest spinner in the history of the game, your test record in India isn't perhaps as good as it is elsewhere in the world? Is that a regret for you that, you know, you encountered Sachin in the prime of his career perhaps, and conditions which didn't work to your advantage, surprisingly?
Yeah, no, it's not a regret, not at all. You know, I was, as I say in the book, you know, I had a shoulder operation, a finger operation in 2 of the tours, which was really disappointing. And, you know, the Indian side back then with Dravid and Sachin and Ganguly and Laxman and Sehwag and all these players, they were such wonderful players. It was very hard over there in India, and they were a great side in India. So, yeah, look, I gave it my best, but, no, they were too good.
Shane, you've also spoken about bookies. I think the first occasion when you came across somebody was in Sri Lanka who offered you $5,000 because I think you were gambling and you lost $5,000, and this person came and said, oh, look, you know, I'm a fan of yours, here's the money back. Tell us about that encounter. What exactly happened there?
Well, if you read the book, I go into depth in detail about it all. It's pretty hard to sum up in 30 seconds here in an interview, so it's probably best to read the book in that part, and that gives you all the details about it.
No, but tell us about that scenario. What comes to mind?
Well, you just said it. You just said it. You said exactly how it is, and the rest is in the book.
Why did you actually accept that money at that stage? I think that's what I'm trying to ask you. Was it a momentary?
I'd lost $5,000 at a casino, and a friend of Mark Ward said, "Look, here's the $5,000." I said, "No, I'm okay." And he said, You know, just no strings attached, no nothing. Have 5,000. I lost that money on the roulette table, and that was that. And the rest, as you said, you'd have to read the book to go into that one.
Salim Malik and how Malik wanted you to bowl badly in a test match. Tell us about our viewers about that scenario, how you were called into his room. What exactly transpired there?
Well, once again, it's pretty hard to go into detail and skim across the top of something that was so serious. It is in the book, the full story in the book, but basically Salim Malik offered me 200,000 US. He said it'd be my room in half an hour if I bowl wide of off stump and the match was a draw. That's the bottom line of what he asked. But how it all happened is in the book.
Just a last couple of questions, Shane. There was that one very unfortunate period when you had a diuretic not really knowing what it was for, and then you ended up being banned in the game. What were the circumstances that led to your consuming that drug? What exactly was it?
Yeah, it was tough being out for a year. I was lucky enough, though, that I played a lot of golf. I learned how to drive properly at advanced driving courses. So I used that year out of the game to come back better. And, you know, the next three, it was 2004, 5, 6 and 7 were terrific years for me. So, yeah, it was a tough year. It was a tough time, but it was nice to come back and get away from the game and then come back better.
The IPL, besides the cricket, you also have written about the friendships and how you actually came to know Indian players much better than perhaps when you played against them or on shorter tours. Tell us about how those friendships developed during the course of the IPL. Yeah,
look, I think I got to understand what makes the Indian boys tick, to play with them and be their captain and coach. And, you know, whether it be Jadeja or Yusuf or, you know, I could go on about all the players. But to sort of have these young kids around and help them out, I'm very proud of that. It's one of the most satisfying things I've done in the game of cricket was the IPL in year 1 in 2008, and we went on to win it. And in the book, I go in depth about the tough decisions we had to make, the way we were going to play, our style of play, and I go on in detail about it, which I hope people will enjoy and get an intimate knowledge about how we did it. And all my Indian fans out there that love the Rajasthan Royals and the IPL, I hope they enjoy that chapter.
One last question, Shane. What next for you? I assume you would always be invested in cricket in some way, shape or form. We hear you on commentary quite often. But is there anything else that interests you now? Something that you want to be involved in?
Look, I've got some businesses that are going well. I'm enjoying my commentary around the world. I'm a father to 3 children, 21, 19 and 17. I've got some great sponsors. I'm playing poker around the world too. So I'm very, very lucky and just doing the best I can and aiming to please.
Shane Warne, it's been a privilege speaking to you. It's a great read. Shane Warne, No Spin. Thanks very much, Shane, for speaking to us today. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks very much, guys. Thank you.